There are actually people hoping for the next financial crisis because they think their Bitcoin will moon. But is that even going to happen? Hello, I'm Adriaan for Bitcoin for Beginners, the educational channel about all things Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in short and sweet fashion. One of Bitcoin's perceived use cases is that of a safe haven in times of financial crisis. After all, it was born during the depth of the 2008 financial crisis. Many view the birth of Bitcoin as a reaction to that event. Of course, Bitcoin certainly by design can function as a safe haven and store of value in times of trouble for those that need it. But many believe that with the next global recession or crisis that eventually will happen, Bitcoin could be adopted massively. The price could therefore surge, and many would buy Bitcoin to hedge against falling prices of stocks, bonds, etc. But can we realistically expect this to happen with the next crisis or recession? And can we learn anything from historical situations with gold, for example? For a solid basic understanding of how economic cycles work and how they are caused, the 30-minute explainer by Ray Dalio is very insightful and I recommend to watch it. We will provide a link to that video for you. Ray Dalio is founder of one of the largest hedge funds in the world. Will we even ever get a recession, as we are now in what seems to be a bull market that never seems to end? The economy and financial markets always move in boom and bust cycles, and they usually follow similar patterns. It is therefore not a question if a recession happens, but when it will happen. Many economists and financial market experts try to predict when each cycle starts and ends. Nothing can grow forever, and times of correction are inevitable and healthy for sustainable growth. An important influential factor for a cycle is what happens on the stock market. If stock prices go down significantly, this can be an indicator for a recession or crisis in motion. The length of each bull market in stocks has been increasing over time. A bull market averaged only 6 months in the 1930s. After World War II, bull markets lasted around 4 years. And in the 90s, a bull market could last even 8 years. Currently, we are experiencing the longest bull market ever, which now lasts already more than 10 years. This means that statistically speaking, it's already overdue for a correction in the form of a bear market that would signal a recession. However, it could just as well run even longer. Eventually, it will reverse though. For the market to reverse, the investor sentiment needs to change from bullish to bearish, and that usually happens due to a catalyst event. Catalysts that could escalate into a recession or crisis could, for example, be, looking at current circumstances, a prolonged or escalating trade war, US politics or elections in the wake of 2020, escalating tensions in the Middle East, especially around Iran, problems in the Eurozone, for example with European banks such as Deutsche Bank that is in deep trouble, and any other black swan event that we cannot know at this time, the so-called unknown unknowns. Any of such events may instigate a recession if they occur, but this is not at all guaranteed, because many other factors are also involved. But first, before we continue, if you like our content, we highly appreciate it if you give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for even more updates. This will also support our channel while you get great updates and educational content about crypto, stripped down to its essence. Let's take a quick look at a few historical events on the charts and see what gold and Bitcoin did compared to the stock market. The first chart shows what happened after the burst of the dot-com bubble in 2000 and 2001. In the first period of the stock market crash, gold was also going down. When later in 2001 9/11 happened, the bear market was even further escalated, but in the week of 9/11 gold performed remarkably well and continued to do so afterwards, while stock prices kept falling. If all the demand for gold came from fear by investors because of 9/11 or from other causes is though hard to say. Remarkably, not long after, also the first gold ETF was launched and the others that followed had also contributed to a strong rally for gold anyway. After cracks in the economy already were appearing and stock prices were already correcting since 2007, the real catalyst event for the 2008 financial crisis was the collapse of Lehman Brothers. The S&P 500 lost almost 60% from top to bottom. Gold, however, was still in a strong bull trend since long before the financial crisis. Its bull trend only got temporarily interrupted for a brief period during the financial crisis, in which it fell around 35%. Therefore, on hindsight, it was indeed better to hold gold during that time. Still, gold prices declined together with stock prices as well. A new recession or bear market during Bitcoin's lifetime has not yet occurred, but we can compare some price action of Bitcoin during some of the smaller stock market corrections that occurred in 2018 and 2019. Indeed, on some periods where stock markets declined sharply, Bitcoin performed poorly as well. But there were also instances where Bitcoin did not react on the stock market or even slightly positive. Gold, after its peak in 2011, has been in a downtrend at least until 2016, after which it started ranging sideways, not being able to break through a strong resistance zone. However, gold has recently managed to break through that resistance zone quite forcefully, and this remarkable event and change in trend could signal that investors are indeed becoming increasingly worried since one of the previous intermediate corrections in the S&P 500. It is, however, still too early to draw definitive conclusions about the reasons for the surge in price of gold. For real research results, the few charts we used are of course not quite enough and more data should be studied, but at least we can make some observations. Gold doesn't seem to react clear or consistent on past bear markets, although sometimes it reacts positively on market uncertainty. But in the 2008 crisis, its uptrend was clearly interrupted by a severe correction. It is hard to draw any conclusions how Bitcoin would respond compared to gold or to economic changes, because it's simply not here long enough. Recent stock market corrections seem to indicate that Bitcoin more often than not follows those corrections too. If you want to try to answer what would happen to Bitcoin in the next recession or crisis, one of which will happen eventually, first of all, there would be a difference if it becomes a recession only or a full-blown crisis. If a recession, I believe it will be more likely that the Bitcoin price goes down together with the rest of the financial markets. Reason for this is that people become fearful of the economy or even actually lose their job. They will then have less money to invest and won't be able to buy Bitcoin. Or even worse, they need to sell Bitcoin in order to cover their income loss. In case of a crisis, I believe in most scenarios the price of Bitcoin could also go down for the same reasons I just explained for recession. There might, however, be scenarios where Bitcoin does pick up and increases in price, but that depends on the cause or effects of a particular crisis. Hyperinflation or other financial systemic threats could lead to people wanting to exit the system or their currency and having Bitcoin as alternative store of value and means of exchange. Examples could be what happened in the Greek debt crisis, where the Greeks suddenly weren't able to access most of their money. This could work as a major wake-up call for others that are at risk for the same situation to act quickly and opt out of the system and enter Bitcoin before it's too late for them too. Another example is hyperinflation, such as is happening in Venezuela, and even volatile Bitcoin seems a much safer store of value than their own currency. Talking about the example of Venezuela, this recent Cointelegraph article writes that Bitcoin trading has hit a giant new record yet again in Venezuela, as the country's crippling hyperinflation continues to play out. Trading volume on local Bitcoins is up by high percentages. The volume increase is also very obvious in the chart by Coin.dance. As final thoughts, I want to conclude that I indeed believe that it is not likely a crisis or recession would be good for Bitcoin's price, rather the opposite, with the exception of specific circumstances that I just explained. More likely is it that for a Bitcoin bull market we would need a strong, healthy stock market too. Either way, the best bull market catalyst for Bitcoin is still its epic price rallies themselves and the media attention that it generates to onboard new investors. Adoption is a slow process, especially for first world countries. Adoption happens step by step whenever the need arises for being censorship resistant or for its monetary policy. If you enjoyed this video, you can watch more of our content by clicking on one of our other videos displayed here. Stay up to date by subscribing to our channel to enjoy all our new material. Have a nice day and see you soon.